Trefethen is one of the oldest winemaking families of Napa Valley. Their story is fascinating and exemplifies the pioneering spirit. They cultivate a staggering 500 acres of vineyard in the Oak Knoll district. Over the last 40 years, they've won awards for having the very best Cabernet Sauvignon in America and twice been awarded Best Chardonnay in the entire world. But when John and Janet moved up to Napa in the late 60s, it was a very different place than it is today.
The place was a mess. Because of what we just talked about, Prohibition, phylloxera, World War I, World War II, there really was no grape industry. And over half of the Napa Valley was planted to something other than grapes. We had peaches, and we had prunes, and we had walnuts, plums. We had some vineyard, but the vineyard that was here, we just called it Mixed Blacks because it had Grand Nord, Alicante Bouschet. Everything was just all mixed up. So, of course, we ripped that out. Right. And what they were after in that era was big, massive bulk producers because they wanted volume. They didn't care anything about quality.
20 tons per acre.
Yes, exactly. I think they got 15, actually. Isn't that incredible? And so that's what we did our first 5 years, 68 to 73, is we really focused on ripping everything out, learning as much as we could historically and from some of the old-time farmers, and totally replanted 500 acres.
Although land was cheap back in the late 60s, it was still a major investment to replant 500 acres. Little did they know that just 30 years later, they would be forced to rip everything out all over again and totally replant after phylloxera wreaked havoc on Napa in the late 80s. So the early days were a real struggle because the wines weren't what they are today quality-wise, and they sold for as little as $5 a bottle. Over the years, Trefethen have remained at the forefront of viticultural innovation, and their history is full of interesting secrets.
We had the first night harvest that ever took place.
Okay.
And part of that was driven by a company called Moet Hennessy, M&H Vineyards,
Right.
who grew up here at Trefethen from 1973 to 1977.
So
they were here. They made all of their first cuvées, all of their first bubbly right here.
whilst they were building Domaine Chandon.
Exactly.
And so all the sparkling wine was made by you here.
Well, it was really made by them
using
here,
your
using our
premises.
facility.
Right.
We didn't know
Right.
enough about bubbles
Right.
to make
Right.
it, so
Right.
but we sure learned a lot from them. It was a real good partnership. And then Baron Philippe's team, Baron Philippe de Rothschild's team came, and they wanted to partner with a Napa Valley winery and talk to us about that.
Okay.
But we were afraid we would just get swallowed up.
Baron Philippe went on to make an agreement with Robert Mondavi and created Opus One. But Mondavi is now owned by Constellation, the world's largest wine company. So anyway, I'm not sure what would have happened had Trefethen collaborated with the Rothschilds. Perhaps they wouldn't have stayed the family-owned company that they are today. Trefethen make a whole range of fantastic wines, including a gorgeous Riesling. I spoke to Janet about her favorites.
You know, ever since the Chardonnay was ranked best in the world in Paris,
In 1979
and again in 1980, I think it's the only white wine in the world that's ever done that, twice. So Chardonnay definitely, but now, according to Connoisseur's Guide, here's one of the top 10 wines of 2009, and it's very close to my heart. Because it's called Halo, and it's the first two letters of both of our children's name. So it's Haley and Lauren is a guy, so it's Loren, and they helped put this entire package together. But I think it's extra special because Gerard Prouvis is the artist that sculpted this, and it's all out of the foil capsules. He makes these wonderful sculptures. And it's, it's all estate. It's absolutely divine wine. This is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon from our Hill Spring vineyard. It's the very best barrels from up there.
And how old are those vines?
Where's the corkscrew? Come on,
It's
James.
here.
I've been lucky enough to have some older vintages of the Trefethen Reserve Cabernet and was totally blown away. In fact, the 2000 vintage was my favorite wine of last year. They're certainly on a par with the top wines of Napa and have the ability to age for over 20 years. And during that time, they develop gorgeous aromas of blackberry, chocolate, cedar and tobacco, and the tannins just seem to melt away in your mouth. The finish can go on forever.
Our wines seem to actually really evolve in the bottle, and they're better if we are able to hold them a little bit longer. But this looks good enough to drink, don't you think?
Well, I'm sure that it is going to be magical.
Lip smacky good, don't you
It
think?
is very good.
The winery at Trefethen is housed in a really characterful old building, and although the family could certainly afford to build an architectural wonder, they prefer to preserve a piece of Napa's history. If you go into their offices, you'll find stacks of awards lying in a big pile on a table, rather than being displayed for all to see in the tasting room. With Janet's kids starting to take over the business, it looks certain that Trefethen will remain a family-owned company for at least another generation. And with all that vineyard in Oak Knoll, I'd bet that the wines will remain amongst Napa's very best.